Hey everyone, radical feminism and male suicide. This is going to go over just fine. I'm doing this video because of a meme. This meme, and in particular this point on the meme. Males die from suicide way more often than women. Now I'm focusing on this point because I study and work in men's mental health. So men's suicide is a subject that matters a great deal to me. I don't want to imply that the other points aren't important though. Just haven't got time to cover them here today. Now the meme, in its entirety, is one that, given the recent women's marches and the new year, I'm starting to see more and more. And in a context that I don't really think it belongs in. This example is fine and very important. It's taken from the International Men's Day Twitter feed. It's simply a list of very concerning statistics. However, in other examples and contexts, like this one, the meme implies that feminism becomes redundant because of these statistics, or even as fellow Australian Mark Latham has stated in the case of male suicides, the direct cause of it. As we say in my country, yeah, nah. So look, in this video, I'll be trying to convince you of two main things. One, feminism is not the cause of this statistic, and two, feminism is far from redundant and might actually show us, as men, a way to see some positive change. Now at this point, I want to acknowledge the truth of the stat. We have many sources showing that men die from suicide far more often than women in Australia, the UK, the US, and worldwide. It sucks, and in Australia alone, that's almost 50,000 men every year. It's a tragedy. However, along with this fact, it needs to be understood that women actually attempt suicide more often than do men. Now, I know everyone loves peer-reviewed literature as much as me, so let me throw a few examples at you. Here's the earliest paper I could find on the subject from '94, and here's the latest from 2015. The fact of women attempting suicide more often than men has been long established in the peer-reviewed literature on this subject. So why then, if women try more often, do men end up completing so much more frequently? Well, simply put, it's because men choose more aggressive and more violent means of attempting suicide. Denning et al., another peer-reviewed paper, and probably one of my favourites. It's a landmark paper with this fact as part of their results. I will come back to this paper again very soon. For now though, let's just understand that the researchers here concluded, in part, that men would most often choose deliberate car accidents, firearms and the like, while women tended to choose methods like cuts or deliberate overdoses. Former examples lead to completion way more often than the latter. Now this in turn begs its own question. Why are men choosing these methods? Well, it's not as some suggest a greater desire or intent to complete. Denning et al. Is again the best example here. They included, along with the other results, that there was no observed difference in intent to die between men and women. This is a good point to stop and summarise. Men die from suicide more often than women, but more women attempt suicide and do so with the intent to die. Kind of flips the meme on its head already, doesn't it? We still haven't answered the last question though. Why are men, and women for that matter, making these choices in regards to means? Well, it's here that I think feminism, and more specifically everyone's favourite, radical feminism, becomes vitally important. Now, radical feminism is almost as diverse as feminism itself. There's not enough time to speak too long about it here. For the purposes of this video, though, I'm interested in what radical feminism has to say about gender roles. Radical feminism thinks gender roles are shit. I'm also interested in radical feminism's intersection with the concept of toxic masculinity. Now, toxic masculinity is another one of those terms that tends to make people defensive or even, ironically, quite aggressive. Again, can't go into it too much here, but I do need to point out that toxic masculinity does not mean anyone is toxic solely by virtue of being male. No. To be very brief, toxic masculinity is a concept that implies the raising of boys into men who are expected to be emotionless, tough, and often violent. This last part is especially important. The acceptable manner in which we express this violence, the direction in which it's acceptable to do so, will see some variance. But I doubt any man watching this could seriously say that men aren't under enormous pressure to exercise this picture of what it means to be a man. Now, taking toxic masculinity is a pretty well established concept. Is it really that much of a surprise then that men choose more violent means when doing violence against themselves? Alternatively, is it really surprising that women tend to choose more passive methods? Absolutely, this all fits very well within our understanding of traditional gender roles. And radical feminism, of course, fucking hates these roles. It's the whole point of the concept. Radical feminism is about dismantling the concepts of traditional gender roles and the institutions that prop them up. Now, I'm fully aware that some people may be holding on to a belief that gender roles are helpful in some other aspect or are natural and unavoidable, what have you. I won't be attacking the entire concept in this video. But if I'm lucky, this has convinced you that feminism, and maybe your perception of what feminism is at the least not to blame for male suicides. The high rate of attempted suicide among women shows that very well all on its own. Now, if I'm really lucky, this has also convinced you that the high rates of male suicide are at least a little bit to do with the impact of society's expectations on how men should think, act, and I guess not feel. If anyone wants to respond, maybe point out some errors, give me some sources adding to or conflicting with what I've given here, or even convince me I'm wrong. I'll take on board anything that's in good faith and is civil. Maybe there'll be other vids in the future, we'll have to wait and see. Who knows? Until then, if it happens, this has been Yeah Nah. Thanks for taking the time.